When I arrived at my sister's engagement party, the security guard sent me to the service entrance. She didn't know I owned the hotel, or that the groom's family was about to learn it the brutal way. The woman wore a crisp uniform with the Meridian logo stitched above her left pocket. Navy blue with gold trim. I recognized it because I'd approved the redesign 3 years ago. She stood at the main entrance with a clipboard, her posture rigid, her smile practiced. "Name?" she asked without looking up. "David Brennan." She scanned the list. Her finger stopped halfway down the page. "I don't see you on the guest roster." "I'm the bride's brother." "One moment." She lifted a radio to her mouth. "Margaret, I have a David Brennan at the main entrance. Says he's family, but not on the list." Static crackled. Then a voice I recognized, my sister Emily's assistant. "Send him around to the service entrance. We'll sort it out there." The guard lowered the radio and gestured to her left. "If you'll follow the walkway around the building, someone will meet you at the loading area." I didn't argue. I'd learned years ago that correction often reveals more than compliance conceals. So I nodded, adjusted my suit jacket, and walked the perimeter of my own property while 2 valets watched with barely concealed amusement. The service entrance smelled like grease traps and diesel exhaust. A delivery truck idled near the loading dock, its refrigeration unit humming. I stood between a dumpster and a stack of empty wine crates, waiting. 5 minutes passed before a young man in a catering uniform appeared. He looked at me with confusion. "You're the family issue." "I'm David Brennan, Emily's brother." "Right, okay, follow me." He led me through the kitchen. The head chef, Antonio, who'd worked for me for 12 years, looked up from a sauté pan. His eyes widened. I shook my head slightly, and he returned his attention to the stove. We emerged into a service hallway. The walls were painted institutional beige. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The young man stopped at a door marked Storage B. "You can wait here. Someone will come get you when they're ready." Then he left. I stood in the hallway for exactly 90 seconds before the door opened and Emily appeared. She wore a cream cocktail dress. Her hair was styled in loose waves. She looked beautiful and uncomfortable. "David, what are you doing here?" "You invited me." "I sent you an invitation, yes, but I didn't expect you to actually come." "Why wouldn't I?" She glanced down the hallway. "Because this is important to me, and you have a way of making things complicated. I'm your brother. You're my much older half-brother who I barely know. James's family has specific expectations about tonight. They're very traditional, very image-conscious. I can't have you wandering around making everyone uncomfortable. I wore a suit." "It's not about the suit." She rubbed her temple. "Look, you can stay for dinner, but please keep a low profile. Don't talk business with anyone. Don't mention your work. Just be normal." "What should I mention?" "I don't know. Books, weather, anything but hotels." "I'm in the hospitality industry, Emily. It's what I do." "You were in the hospitality industry. You're semi-retired now, right? That's what you told me." I let the misunderstanding stand. "Right." "Good. So just be retired, David, tonight. Not business, David. Can you do that?" "Of course." She studied me for a moment, searching for sarcasm. Finding none, she nodded. "Okay. The reception is in the grand ballroom. I'll have someone show you to your table." "What table am I at?" 17, near the back. The grand ballroom seated 300. Table 17 was positioned behind a decorative column, partially obscured from the main floor. It was where we put last-minute additions and plus ones we didn't actually want. "Perfect," I said. Emily's shoulders relaxed. "Thank you for understanding. This wedding means everything to me. James's family is very well connected. His father is on the board of directors for 3 major companies. His mother chairs 2 charitable foundations. They move in circles that could really help my career." "What career?" "I'm launching a lifestyle brand, curated home goods and entertaining essentials. James's mother has already offered to introduce me to some investors." "That's wonderful." "It is, which is why tonight needs to go perfectly. No drama, no complications, just a nice, normal engagement party." Someone called her name from the other end of the hallway. She turned, waved, then looked back at me. "I have to go. Remember, table 17, low profile." She disappeared around the corner. I stood alone in the service hallway, listening to the muffled sound of conversation and music from the ballroom. Then I walked back through the kitchen. Antonio glanced up again. This time I stopped. "How's the service flow tonight?" I asked quietly. "Chaotic. They changed the menu 3 times this week. The client wants past appetizers during cocktail hour but refused to pay for additional servers. We're running at 60% capacity." "Who approved that?" "Marcus did. He said the client insisted." Marcus Chen was the general manager. I'd hired him 8 months ago after the previous GM retired. He was efficient but inexperienced, too willing to accommodate unreasonable requests. What else? Antonio lowered his voice. They're using the North Service elevator for guest luggage. It's not rated for that kind of traffic. And someone disabled the overflow alarm on the grease trap to reduce noise complaints. When? 2 days ago? I nodded. Thanks. Should I? No. Continue as planned. I left through the kitchen's side exit and entered the main building through the staff corridor. The walls here were different. Crown molding, silk wallpaper, recessed lighting. This was the public face of the Meridian. I'd bought the property 14 years ago when it was a failing convention hotel on the edge of bankruptcy. The previous owners had leveraged themselves into oblivion, chasing corporate contracts that never materialized. I'd acquired it for 32 cents on the dollar and spent 2 years rebuilding the brand. Now it was the premier event venue in the city. We hosted gubernatorial fundraisers, Fortune 500 holiday parties, society weddings, the kind of occasions where appearance mattered more than substance. I reached the grand ballroom and paused outside the double doors. Through the small windows I could see the crowd. 200 guests, maybe more. Most of them clustered near the bar or the past appetizer stations. A string quartet played in the corner. Table 17 was exactly where I expected it. Behind the column, next to the service station, I could see 2 elderly couples already seated there, looking confused about why they'd been relegated to social Siberia. I didn't enter. Instead, I walked to the service alcove where the waitstaff assembled trays. A young woman in a server's uniform was counting champagne flutes. "Excuse me," she turned. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm looking for the venue manager. Is she here tonight?" "Mr. Blake? He's in the administrative office, 3rd floor." "Thank you." I took the elevator up. The administrative floor was quiet. Most of the staff was downstairs managing the event. I walked past empty desks and dark offices until I reached the corner suite. The door was open. Marcus sat behind a desk, reviewing spreadsheets on dual monitors. He was 34, Yale MBA. 5 years at a boutique consulting firm before transitioning to hospitality management. He dressed like he was still in consulting. "David," he stood quickly. "I didn't know you were coming tonight." "Family obligation." "Right. Your sister, the Whitmore party." "Whitmore?" "James Whitmore, the groom. His family has been very specific about their requirements." "I heard you accommodated some unusual requests." Marcus shifted his weight. "They're high-value clients. The Whitmore name carries significant social capital. Having them host their engagement party here could lead to other bookings in their network." "So you waived the minimum server requirement." "They have a firm budget. I didn't want to lose the booking over staffing ratios." "And the elevator?" His expression tightened. "The north elevator is temporary, just for tonight. The Whitmores have several guests staying in the hotel. They wanted discreet luggage service during the party." "The north elevator isn't rated for freight?" "It's not freight, it's luggage. The distinction won't matter when someone gets injured." Marcus sat down. "Are you here as an owner or as a guest?" "Does it matter?" "It does if you're planning to override my operational decisions. I was hired to manage this property. That includes making judgment calls about client accommodation within established safety parameters." "Which I did. I reviewed the elevator specifications. The load capacity is well within limits." I let it go. Not because he was right, but because correction at this stage would create exactly the kind of disruption Emily had asked me to avoid. Instead, I changed subjects. "Where's the Whitmore party seated?" "Tables 1 through 6, prime floor position. They have 42 guests in their immediate group." "And Emily's guests?" "Distributed throughout the remaining tables, she has about 80 people here." "Where's her father?" Marcus hesitated. "I don't think he's attending." "He's not?" "According to the seating chart, no." My father had divorced Emily's mother when Emily was 7. He'd remarried twice since then and now lived in Arizona with wife number 3. We spoke perhaps twice a year, usually around holidays. The conversations were cordial and meaningless. "What about Emily's mother?" "Table 9, with her husband and some friends." So Emily had family here, just not the family that mattered to the Whitmores. I was the embarrassing half-brother. Her mother was the divorced single parent who'd married a regional sales manager. Her absent father was a retired insurance adjuster. Meanwhile, James's family included board members and foundation chairs and people who summered in the Hamptons. The imbalance wasn't subtle. "Thank you, Marcus." "Are you staying for the party?" Briefly. I left before he could ask more questions. On the way back to the elevator, I passed the security office. The door was propped open. Inside, I could see the monitor wall displaying camera feeds from throughout the building. The head of security was a former police captain named Raymond Torres. He'd worked for me for 6 years. He was in his mid-50s, with gray hair and the kind of calm competence that comes from 3 decades of managing unpredictable situations. He looked up when I knocked. "Mr. Brennan, didn't expect to see you tonight. I'm here for the Whitmore engagement party." "Family?" "Bride's brother." Raymond's expression didn't change, but I saw the calculation behind his eyes. "Should I know anything?" "Not yet. But potentially?" "Let's say I'm observing." He nodded slowly. "The Whitmore group has been demanding. They've requested additional security coverage for their VIP guests, extra monitoring of the parking area, priority elevator access." "Did Marcus approve all that?" "He did, with the understanding that it's a one-time accommodation." "How's the rest of the building?" "Normal Saturday occupancy. We have a corporate group checking in tomorrow morning for a 3-day conference. A few wedding guests staying through the weekend, nothing unusual." "And the grease trap?" Raymond's eyes narrowed. "What about it?" "Someone disabled the overflow alarm." "When?" 2 days ago." He turned to one of the monitors and pulled up the maintenance logs. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. After a moment, he frowned. "Maintenance ticket was filed Thursday afternoon. Says the alarm was malfunctioning. Sensor replaced and system tested, but the work order is marked incomplete. No secondary inspection." "Who filed it?" "Marcus." "Without engineering review?" "Apparently." I absorbed this. The grease trap system was critical infrastructure. A failure could flood the kitchen, contaminate the food service area, and trigger a health department shutdown. Disabling the alarm, even temporarily, violated multiple safety protocols. But addressing it now would require pulling Marcus from the event, potentially disrupting Emily's party, and creating exactly the kind of scene she'd asked me to avoid. So I made a note and moved on. "Keep an eye on the north elevator," I said. "If you see any irregular usage, shut it down immediately." "Understood." I rode the elevator back to the ground floor and finally entered the grand ballroom through the main doors. The party was in full swing now. Guests clustered in groups, champagne flutes in hand, voices rising above the string quartet. I spotted Emily immediately. She stood near the center of the room with James and an older couple I assumed were his parents. James was tall, athletic build, expensive haircut. His father was a slightly older version of the same template. His mother wore a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. They looked like a political campaign photo. I navigated around the perimeter of the room, staying clear of the main clusters. Table 17 was occupied now, the 2 elderly couples, a middle-aged man in an ill-fitting suit, a woman who appeared to be his wife. They all had the same expression, confused about why they'd been exiled to the worst table in the room. I sat down in the empty chair. No one made eye contact. A waiter appeared with champagne. I took a glass and sipped it slowly, watching the crowd. Emily was introducing James to someone. His mother was speaking with a group of women near the bar. His father stood with 3 other men, all of them holding cocktails and nodding at whatever he was saying. Then I saw my son. Kevin stood near table 3, talking to a young woman in a blue dress. He was 26, investment analyst at a mid-tier firm. He wore a charcoal suit that fit perfectly and spoke with the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to question his place in a room. I hadn't spoken to him in 4 months, not because of any particular argument, just because our conversations had become transactional and infrequent, birthday texts, holiday check-ins, the occasional email about tax documents or insurance paperwork. We'd drifted into the kind of relationship where presence was optional and absence went unnoticed. I watched him laugh at something the woman said. She touched his arm. He smiled. Then he glanced across the room and saw me. His smile faded. He said something to the woman and walked over. His expression was careful, neutral. "Dad, I didn't know you were coming." Emily invited me. "Right. Yeah." He looked around. "Where are you sitting?" I gestured to table 17. Kevin's jaw tightened. "Why are you back here?" "It's where they put me." "Did you ask Emily about it?" "She has a lot on her mind tonight." "You should have told her you were coming. She could have made arrangements." "I did tell her." "When?" 3 weeks ago, when I RSVP'd. Kevin ran a hand through his hair. It was a gesture I recognized from his childhood. Frustration mixed with resignation. "This is typical." "What is?" "You showing up and making things awkward. This is Emily's night. James's family is here. Important people. And you're sitting at the overflow table looking like a charity case." "I'm sitting where I was told to sit." "You could have said something. You could have pushed back. Instead, you just accepted it, and now you're martyring yourself in the corner." I'm not martyring myself. I'm attending my sister's engagement party. You're making a statement. What statement would that be? Kevin leaned closer. That you're the forgotten family member. The one they couldn't quite find a place for. It's passive-aggressive and embarrassing. For whom? For all of us. Do you know who James's father is? Do you have any idea the kind of circles he moves in? This party is about building relationships, making connections, and you're over here broadcasting dysfunction. I took another sip of champagne. I see. Do you? Because I don't think you understand how these things work. Perception matters, presentation matters, who you're associated with matters. And I'm an association problem. You're not helping. A woman's voice interrupted. Kevin, is everything okay? I looked up. The woman from table 3 stood beside us. She was younger than Kevin, late 20s maybe, professional makeup and designer dress. She looked between us with polite confusion. Kevin's expression shifted immediately. The frustration vanished, replaced by practiced charm. Everything's fine, Allison. Just catching up with my father. Dad, this is Allison Whitmore, James's younger sister. Allison extended her hand. I stood and shook it. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Brennan. Emily has mentioned you. Has she? She said you were in the hotel business. I was. Past tense? I'm semi-retired now. That must be nice, having time to pursue other interests. It has its advantages. Kevin shifted his weight. Allison works in marketing. She's with Peterson Gray. The advertising firm? Allison smiled. Brand strategy, technically. We work with high-end consumer clients. Sounds challenging. It is, but rewarding. Are you enjoying the party? Very much. She glanced at table 17, then back at me. Her smile didn't waver, but something in her eyes changed. A flicker of understanding. Or maybe pity. Well, I should get back. My mother is probably looking for me. It was lovely meeting you. She walked away. Kevin watched her go, then turned back to me. Allison is going to be important to my career. Her firm handles several of our clients. I need to make a good impression on her family. I understand. Do you? Because right now you're a liability. James's parents are already asking questions about Emily's family background. They want to know who her people are, what kind of circles she comes from. And the answer is, she comes from a divorced mother, an absent father, and a half-brother sitting at the overflow table. What would you like me to do? Leave. Tell Emily you're not feeling well. Make an excuse. Just go before you become a bigger problem than you already are. I set down my champagne glass. No? No? I was invited. I'm staying. Kevin's face flushed. You're unbelievable. You know that? Absolutely unbelievable. You can't just swallow your pride for one night and help your family look good. I'm not the one who assigned the seating. No, you're just the one who refuses to acknowledge why the seating matters. This isn't about you. It's about Emily, about her future, about the opportunities this marriage could create for all of us. All of us? Yes, all of us. James's family has connections, resources, influence. If Emily plays this right, she could build something real, something that benefits everyone. And I'm threatening that? You're not helping it. Someone called Kevin's name from across the room. He glanced over, then back at me. I have to go, but please, for once in your life, consider someone other than yourself. Think about what's best for the family. He walked away before I could respond. I sat back down at table 17. The elderly couples were watching me with poorly concealed curiosity. The middle-aged man in the ill-fitting suit leaned over. Family drama? Something like that. Same here. My wife and I are friends of the bride's mother. We got invited, but I don't think anyone actually wanted us here. Why'd you come? Free food. Open bar. Figured we'd eat well and leave early. His wife elbowed him. Don't be crass. I'm being honest. They started bickering quietly. I tuned them out and watched the room. James's father was holding court near the windows now. His circle had expanded to include 6 or 7 people, all of them listening intently as he spoke. Every few seconds, someone would laugh. He had the easy authority of someone who'd never been told no. His wife circulated with practiced efficiency. She moved from group to group, touching arms, making introductions, orchestrating social connections like a conductor leading an orchestra. Emily stood at the edge of their sphere, watching, learning. And Kevin was back with Allison, both of them laughing at something James had said. I was the only person in the room sitting alone. The waiters began serving the first course, seared scallops with a lemon butter sauce. I ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. Around me, the conversation at table 17 consisted of polite observations about the venue and carefully neutral comments about the happy couple. No one asked me anything. Halfway through the main course, the music stopped. James's father stood and walked to a microphone that had been set up near the center of the room. The crowd quieted. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Richard Whitmore, James's father, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate this wonderful occasion." Applause. Richard waited for it to die down. When James first told me about Emily, I'll admit I was skeptical, not because of Emily herself, she's a remarkable young woman, but because James has always been, shall we say, selective about the company he keeps. Laughter. James grinned. Emily looked nervous. But from the moment I met Emily, I understood. She's intelligent, ambitious, and most importantly, she understands the value of family, of tradition, of building something that lasts. More applause. Richard raised his glass. "So I want to propose a toast to James and Emily. May their marriage be filled with love, prosperity, and the kind of partnership that makes both of them better than they were alone." Everyone stood, glasses raised. I stood too, mechanically, and drank. Richard wasn't finished. "I also want to acknowledge Emily's mother, Patricia. Thank you for raising such a wonderful daughter, and to Emily's brother. Where is he? David, stand up." The room turned, 200 faces searching for me. I remained standing, silent. There he is, all the way in the back. "David, thank you for being here tonight. Family is important, even the extended branches." Laughter again. Not cruel, just casual. The kind of laughter that comes from people who've never had to question their position in a hierarchy. Richard smiled. "But in all seriousness, welcome to the family. We're glad to have you." He sat down. The room returned its attention to the front. The string quartet resumed playing, and I understood, with perfect clarity, exactly what I was to these people. Not a brother, not a guest, not even a person. Just a footnote, an extended branch, a name mentioned for the sake of completeness and then immediately forgotten. I sat back down. My hands were steady, my expression was calm. Inside, something fundamental shifted. The waiters cleared the plates. Dessert appeared. I didn't eat it. Instead, I watched James's mother work the room. I watched Richard hold court. I watched Kevin and Allison laugh together. I watched Emily glow in the reflected prestige of the Whitmore name, and I made calculations. Not emotional calculations, not revenge fantasies. Structural calculations. Because I understood something they didn't. Something they couldn't understand because they'd never had to build anything from nothing. Prestige is borrowed power. Status is conditional, and both can be withdrawn. Not dramatically, not violently, just systematically. I finished my champagne and stood. No one noticed. I walked out of the grand ballroom the same way I'd entered, through the service corridor, past the kitchen, out through the loading dock. The night air was cold. The parking lot was half full. I found my car and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. Then I made a phone call. Raymond answered on the second ring. "Everything okay? I need you to pull the security footage from the main entrance, starting at 7 p.m. tonight. Specific incident? Just archive it. I may need it later." Understood. I hung up and made another call. This one to my attorney. "David, it's late." "I know. Sorry. I need you to review something for me." "What?" "The operational authority structure for the Meridian property, specifically the general manager's discretionary override capabilities." There was a pause. "Are we talking about Marcus?" "Yes." "What did he do?" "Nothing illegal, just questionable. I want to know the extent of his unilateral decision-making power." "I can have that for you Monday morning?" "Thank you." I ended the call and sat in silence. Then I started the car and drove home. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? Sunday morning, I woke at 6 and went for a run. 5 miles through the park, pushing harder than necessary, trying to burn off the residual anger from the night before. It didn't work. By 7, I was showered and sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and a legal pad. I started making lists. Not emotional lists, tactical lists. The first list was personnel. Everyone at the Meridian who reported directly to me versus everyone who reported to Marcus. The overlap was significant. Marcus controlled day-to-day operations, but I controlled hiring, firing, major capital expenditures, and strategic direction. The second list was operational vulnerabilities. Everything Marcus had approved or modified in the 8 months since I'd hired him. The grease trap alarm, the elevator usage, the reduced server ratios. each item individually defensible, collectively a pattern. The third list was relationships. Who in the Whitmore circle had actual power versus who just had proximity to power. Richard clearly ran the family. His wife operated as his strategic partner. James was the heir apparent, but still unproven. Allison worked in marketing, but seemed to have social influence beyond her professional role. And Kevin was positioning himself as the bridge between the families. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Thank you for coming last night. I know it was awkward. I appreciate you being there." I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another text. "Are you upset?" I typed. "No." "You seemed distant." "I was tired." "Okay. Well, thanks again." I set the phone down and returned to my lists. At 9, my attorney called. I reviewed the Meridian Management Agreement. Marcus has discretionary authority for operational decisions under $50,000 and non-structural facility modifications. Anything beyond that requires your approval. What about safety protocol changes? Gray area. If the change is operational in nature and doesn't require capital expenditure, he can argue it falls under his discretionary authority. But if it creates liability exposure, you could override it. The grease trap alarm? Probably discretionary. Technically, it's a maintenance issue, not a safety protocol change, unless you can demonstrate he knowingly created a hazard. And the elevator? Same logic. If he can show the usage was within specifications, it's operational discretion. So he's covered. For now. But if anything goes wrong, the liability shifts, and his decision-making pattern could be used to establish negligence. Meaning? Meaning if you're building a case for termination, you need a clean incident, something where his judgment directly caused measurable harm. Right now, you just have questionable decisions. Understood. I hung up and added a fourth list. Documentation requirements. I spent the rest of Sunday reviewing property records, maintenance logs, and financial statements. By evening, I had a clear picture of how Marcus operated. He was aggressive with client accommodation. He prioritized revenue over protocol. He made decisions quickly, sometimes too quickly, and relied on his MBA pedigree to justify his approach. He wasn't corrupt, just inexperienced and overconfident, which made him vulnerable. Monday morning, I drove to the Meridian. I arrived at 8 before the administrative staff and used my master key to access Marcus's office. His desk was organized, color-coded folders, labeled binders, a framed MBA diploma on the wall. Everything projected competence and control. I opened his computer. No password, a security violation in itself. His email was sorted into folders: client communications, staff directives, vendor contracts, budget reviews. I opened the folder labeled Whitmore Event, 47 emails. Most of them from Richard's assistant, a woman named Caroline. Her messages were polite but firm. Specific requests framed as non-negotiable expectations. The Whitmore family requires exclusive elevator access during the event. Mr. Whitmore prefers a specific champagne that is not on your standard beverage menu. Mrs. Whitmore has requested that certain staff members be assigned to their tables based on appearance and demeanor. Marcus had accommodated everything. I read through his responses. Deferential. Eager to please. In one email he'd actually written, "We're honored to host the Whitmore family and will ensure every detail exceeds expectations." I printed the entire exchange and locked it in my briefcase. Then I opened his budget files. The Whitmore event had been booked at a 20% discount. Marcus had justified it as a strategic relationship investment, but the discount had been applied before any negotiation. He'd simply offered it preemptively. The actual revenue from the event barely covered costs. When I factored in the additional security, the specialized champagne, the extra hours for preferred staff, we'd essentially broken even. For a party that should have generated $30,000 in profit, we'd made less than $2,000. I printed those documents too. At 8:30, Marcus arrived. I heard him in the hallway talking on his phone. He walked into his office and stopped when he saw me sitting at his desk. "David, I didn't expect you this morning. We need to talk about the Whitmore event." He set down his briefcase. "Is there a problem?" "Several." I handed him the printed emails. He skimmed them, his expression shifting from confusion to defensiveness. "These are standard client communications. High-value customers have specific expectations. Part of my job is managing those expectations. By giving away margin? By building relationships. The Whitmore name is worth more than one event's profit." "Is it?" "Yes. Richard Whitmore sits on 3 corporate boards. His wife runs 2 foundations. They move in circles that generate millions in annual event revenue. One successful relationship with them could lead to a dozen more bookings." "Did Richard Whitmore promise you anything? Marcus hesitated. Not explicitly. Implicitly? His assistant mentioned they were impressed with our flexibility, that they'd consider the Meridian for future events. Consider? Yes. And on the basis of that consideration, you discounted the event by 20%, waived safety protocols, and assigned staff based on appearance? Marcus's jaw tightened. You're taking this out of context. I'm reading your own emails, which were written under time pressure while managing multiple complex client requirements. Yes, I made concessions. That's what client services means. You accommodate where you can to build loyalty. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the morning traffic moved slowly down the street. Commuters, delivery trucks, the ordinary machinery of a Monday. Do you know why I hired you? I asked. Because of my management experience and strategic vision? I hired you because you interviewed well and your references were solid, but mostly because you were willing to work for less than the previous GM. Marcus's face flushed. I'm not criticizing. I'm clarifying. You took this job because you needed hotel management experience to advance your career. I gave you this job because I needed someone competent who wouldn't ask questions about ownership structure. What does that mean? It means you don't actually know who you're working for. The silence stretched. Marcus recovered first. Are you unhappy with my performance? I'm unhappy with your judgment. Based on one event? Based on a pattern. The grease trap alarm, the elevator usage, the staffing ratios, the discount structure. Individually, each decision is defensible. Together, they demonstrate a willingness to prioritize appearances over operations. I prioritize client satisfaction. You prioritize client flattery. There's a difference. Marcus picked up his briefcase. If you're dissatisfied with my management, you should say so directly. I don't appreciate having my decisions audited after the fact without consultation. I own the building. I don't need to consult you to review operational decisions. You own the building? I let him process it. His expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally understanding. You're not semi-retired. No. The Meridian isn't part of a management group. It is. I'm the management group. How many properties? 7 in the region, 12 nationally. Marcus sat down slowly. Why didn't you tell me? Because I prefer operational managers who make decisions based on merit, not hierarchy. If you'd known I owned the property, you would have been paralyzed by approval seeking. This way, I got to see your actual judgment. And you don't like what you see. I think you're learning, but you're not there yet. So what happens now? Now you start making decisions like someone who understands that client satisfaction and operational integrity aren't mutually exclusive. You can accommodate requests without compromising safety. You can build relationships without giving away margin. You can prioritize appearances while maintaining standards. Marcus absorbed this. And if I can't? Then I'll find someone who can. I picked up my briefcase and walked toward the door. Marcus called after me. The Whitmore event was successful. Emily was happy. The clients were happy. No one got hurt. I stopped but didn't turn around. This time, I said. Then I left. I spent the rest of Monday meeting with department heads. Maintenance, housekeeping, food and beverage, security. I asked each of them the same questions. What operational changes had Marcus implemented since he started? What client requests had seemed unusual or excessive? What safety protocols had been modified or waived? The answers were consistent. Marcus was accommodating, maybe too accommodating. He said yes to client requests that previous management would have pushed back on. He prioritized event success over procedural compliance. But he wasn't malicious, just eager. By Tuesday, I had a complete picture. Marcus was exactly what I'd suspected. A competent operator with bad instincts about power dynamics. He saw wealthy clients and assumed they deserved special treatment. He saw expensive events and assumed success meant total accommodation. He was wrong, but he was trainable, which meant I needed him exactly where he was. Tuesday afternoon, Emily called. Can we have coffee? When? Tomorrow, there's a place near my apartment. Say 10 a.m.? I'll be there. She gave me the address and hung up. Wednesday morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. It was one of those aggressively trendy places with exposed brick, industrial lighting, and a chalkboard menu featuring drinks with names like Turmeric Sunrise and Activated Charcoal Americano. Emily arrived exactly on time. She wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup. She looked younger without the cocktail party styling. We ordered, regular coffee for me, something involving oat milk and vanilla for her, and sat at a corner table. Thank you for meeting me, she said. Of course. I wanted to apologize for Saturday night. You don't need to apologize. I do. The seating arrangement was terrible. The way Richard called you out during his toast. The whole thing was uncomfortable and I should have prevented it. You were busy. I was distracted. There's a difference. She stirred her coffee. James's family is very particular about how things look. Who sits where? Who gets introduced to whom? It's exhausting. Why do it? Because it matters. Richard has connections that could change my entire trajectory. He's already introduced me to 2 investors for my lifestyle brand. His wife offered to host a launch party at their estate. That's generous. It's strategic. They want to make sure I'm the right fit for their family, that I understand their world, that I won't embarrass them. And your family? Emily's expression tightened. My family is complicated. How so? Mom is great, but she's not exactly in their league. She works in HR for a regional hospital. Her husband manages territory sales for an industrial supply company. They're fine people, but they are not the kind of people Richard and Catherine socialize with. And me? She struggled for the word. You're unknown. I've told James you're in the hospitality industry, but I don't really know what that means. Are you successful? Are you struggling? Do you own things or manage things? I honestly don't know. Does it matter? To Richard it does. He asked me point blank what my family's financial situation is, whether there are any trust funds or inheritances or business interests. He wants to understand the full picture before the wedding. What did you tell him? That I don't know, that you and I aren't close, that my mother is self-sufficient but not wealthy, that my father is essentially out of the picture. I sipped my coffee. Accurate, but inadequate. Richard likes complete information. He's used to doing due diligence. He's not comfortable with ambiguity. What do you want from me, Emily? She met my eyes. I want to know who you are, what you do, whether I need to be worried that something about our family background is going to surface and cause problems. I own hotels. Hotels plural? Yes. How many? 12. Her eyes widened. You own 12 hotels? Through a holding company. I started with one property 14 years ago and expanded gradually. It's not glamorous. Mostly regional business hotels and event venues. Are you wealthy? I'm comfortable. David, 12 hotels is more than comfortable. It depends on the hotels. She leaned back. Why didn't you tell me this? You never asked. I asked what you did. You said you were semi-retired. I am. I'm operationally semi-retired. I still own the properties, but I'm not involved in day-to-day management. Except you were at the Meridian on Saturday, walking around like you owned the place. I do own the place. Emily's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. You own the Meridian. Yes. Where I had my engagement party. Yes. And you let them send you to the service entrance. I didn't stop them. Why not? I considered the question. Because I wanted to see how I'd be treated. That's insane. Is it? Yes. You could have told Marcus. You could have told me. Instead, you let yourself be humiliated just to make some kind of point. What point would that be? That we don't appreciate you, that we took you for granted, that we're all superficial and horrible. I didn't need to prove that. You demonstrated it perfectly well on your own. Emily's face went pale. That's cruel. It's accurate. I invited you. I wanted you there. You wanted me there as a checkbox. An obligation fulfilled. You didn't want me there as a person. That's not fair. Emily, you seated me at table 17, behind a column, next to strangers, while your future brother-in-law introduced me as an extended branch of the family tree. You think I didn't notice? I didn't plan the seating chart. James's mother handled all of that. And you let her. Because I'm trying to build a relationship with her. Because her opinion matters. Because this wedding is about more than just one night. I understand. Do you? Because it sounds like you're judging me for trying to build a better life. I'm not judging you. I'm observing you. Emily stood up. I came here to apologize, to try to make things right. And instead, you're throwing it back in my face. I'm being honest. You're being vindictive. She grabbed her purse and walked out. I finished my coffee alone. Then I paid the bill and left. That afternoon, Kevin called. Did you talk to Emily? Briefly. She said you were an asshole. I was honest. There's a difference. Not always. Kevin sighed. Look, I get it. Saturday was awkward. The seating situation was bad. But you didn't have to twist the knife. I told her I own hotels. She asked. I answered. You told her you own the Meridian, where she had her party. That's not answering a question. That's making her feel stupid. She asked who I was. I told her. You ambushed her. I corrected a misunderstanding. No, you weaponized information. You let her go months thinking you were some semi-retired nobody, and then you revealed you've been successful this entire time. Do you know how that looks? How does it look? Like you were testing her, like you were waiting for her to fail some kind of character assessment so you could prove a point about family loyalty. Is that what you think I was doing? I think you're angry that Emily got engaged to someone wealthy. I think you're angry that she's ascending into social circles you don't belong to. And I think you're using this ownership reveal as a way to undercut her happiness. I let the accusation sit, Kevin continued. Emily's worked hard for this. She's built her entire brand concept from scratch. She's cultivated relationships with investors. She's about to marry into a family that could open every door she's ever wanted, and you're trying to sabotage it. How am I sabotaging it? By making her doubt herself, by making her feel small, by reminding her that you have power she didn't know about. Power I built. Power you hid. I didn't hide it. I just didn't advertise it. Which is the same thing. You let us all think you were barely scraping by. You drove a 10-year-old car. You wore cheap suits. You never talked about money or success or anything that would indicate you'd actually accomplished something. I didn't think it was relevant. Of course it's relevant. You're our father. Your success is part of our identity, and you kept it from us. Why does my success matter to your identity? Kevin's voice rose. Because it changes the equation. Because if I'd known you owned hotels, plural, I would have approached our relationship differently. I would have asked for advice, for mentorship, for connections. So, you're angry I didn't help your career. I'm angry you let me think you couldn't. I absorbed this. What do you want from me, Kevin? I want you to apologize to Emily. I want you to admit you handled this wrong, and I want you to stop playing power games with your own family. And if I don't, then you're going to be alone, because Emily's moving on, I'm moving on, and you're going to be the bitter old man sitting at table 17 wondering why nobody wants you around? He hung up. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the phone. Then I drove to my lawyer's office. I need to restructure the ownership of the Meridian. My attorney looked up from his paperwork. Why? I want operational control to remain with me, but I want the property title to shift into a discretionary trust. For estate planning? For liability insulation. From what? From association. He studied me carefully. This is about your family. This is about maintaining clear boundaries between personal relationships and business assets. David, you can't use corporate structures to punish your children. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting what I built. By making sure they can't access it. By making sure they can't leverage it. My attorney set down his pen. I'll draft the paperwork, but I'm advising you, on the record, that this is a mistake. You're creating legal separation when what you need is personal reconciliation. I'll take that under advisement. He shook his head but started typing. I left his office and drove to the Meridian. It was mid-afternoon. The lobby was quiet. A few business travelers checking in, a couple reviewing wedding venue materials with the event coordinator. I took the elevator to the third floor and walked to Raymond's office. Do you have the security footage from Saturday? He pulled it up on his monitor. What am I looking for? 7 p.m., main entrance. He scrubbed to the timestamp. On screen, I saw myself approaching the door. The security guard stopping me, her radio call, the direction to the service entrance. Can you isolate her badge number? Raymond zoomed in. Badge 447. That's Jennifer Kowalski. She's been with us for 3 years. Good record. She was following protocol? Yes. The guest list was provided by the event client. If someone's not on the list, we redirect them to event services for verification. Who provided the list? Marcus forwarded it from the Whitmore assistant. Caroline. Right. I watched the footage again. Watched myself comply without argument. Watched the valet's smirk. Watched the whole casual humiliation unfold with perfect procedural justification. Archive this. With encryption. Raymond's expression didn't change. Understood. I returned to the lobby and sat in one of the armchairs near the windows. I watched people come and go, watched the staff move with practiced efficiency, watched the ordinary operations of a business I'd built from bankruptcy into prominence. And I thought about Kevin's words. Power you hid. He was wrong. I hadn't hidden anything. I'd simply lived my life without needing external validation. I'd built businesses because I enjoyed the work, not because I wanted recognition. But my children had interpreted that humility as weakness, my sister had interpreted it as irrelevance, and the Whitmores had interpreted it as social inferiority. they'd all made the same mistake. They'd confused quiet operation with lack of capability. Now they were about to learn the difference. The city inspector returned on Tuesday morning. Unannounced this time. Marcus called me immediately. The fire marshal's office is here. They're saying there's a complaint about our emergency egress system. What kind of complaint? Someone reported that the north stairwell door was blocked during a private event. They want to verify compliance. Is the door blocked? No, it's clear. It's always clear. Then let them inspect. I met the inspector in the north wing. He was a different person than before. Younger, more aggressive in his questioning. I need to see maintenance logs for all emergency exits for the past 6 months. Marcus pulled up the digital records on a tablet. The inspector reviewed them slowly, taking notes. You had a private event on May 4th. Large party, 200 plus guests. That's correct. Where was the catering setup? Marcus hesitated. Various locations, past appetizers, beverage stations. Was there any equipment staged in the north corridor? Temporarily, during setup and breakdown. How long? Maybe 30 minutes. The inspector made another note. Your emergency egress plan requires all corridors to remain clear during occupied events. No exceptions. The corridor was clear during the event, only during setup. Setup is part of the event timeline. The building was occupied. The corridor should have been clear. Marcus looked at me. I kept my expression neutral. The inspector handed him a citation. This is a warning. Next violation results in a $1,000 fine and possible event permit suspension. After he left, Marcus stared at the paper. Someone reported us. Apparently. The May 4th event was the Whitmore engagement party. Yes. Someone from that event filed a complaint with the fire marshal. That would be my assumption. Marcus's face reddened. This is targeted harassment. It's a legitimate safety concern. It's a technicality being weaponized. We were cited for a 30-minute corridor obstruction that happened during setup, not during the actual event. The inspector disagrees. Because someone told him to disagree, someone with influence. I didn't respond. Marcus set the citation on his desk. What do you want me to do? File a response. Document that we've corrected the procedural gap, and make sure it never happens again. And if we get more complaints, then we address them as they come. He studied me carefully. You're not surprised by this. I'm rarely surprised by predictable behavior. You think Richard Whitmore is behind this? I think Richard Whitmore is a man who values control, and people who value control tend to verify the things they depend on. By harassing the venue? By ensuring compliance. From his perspective, he's protecting his investment. His son's wedding is in 3 weeks. He's confirming that the facility can handle it. Marcus leaned back. That's a generous interpretation. It's a realistic one. Wednesday afternoon, I received a call from Gerald Hastings, the city councilman, Richard's business partner. Mr. Brennan, Gerald Hastings. I don't believe we've met. No, we haven't. I'm on the city council, Economic Development Committee. I also serve on the board of several local organizations with Richard Whitmore. I'm aware. Good. Then you'll understand why I'm calling. I wanted to personally follow up on the recent building inspections. Make sure there's no confusion about the city's intentions. I wasn't confused. Excellent. Because the last thing we want is for a valuable property like the Meridian to feel unfairly targeted. The inspections were purely routine, part of a broader initiative to ensure commercial safety standards across the district. Of course. That said, if you have any concerns about the process, I'm happy to serve as a liaison. I have good relationships with the city departments. I can help smooth any administrative friction. That's very generous. Not at all. Richard speaks highly of your property. He's looking forward to James's wedding. I'd hate for anything to complicate that. The implicit threat was clear. Cooperate or complications would emerge. The wedding will proceed without issue, I said. I'm glad to hear it. And if you ever need anything, permits, variance requests, zoning considerations, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help community partners. I'll keep that in mind. He hung up. I sat back and smiled. They were applying pressure, testing to see if I'd bend, demonstrating their reach. They had no idea they were just showing me their hand. Thursday morning, Catherine called again. Mr. Brennan, I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. I wanted to confirm that you received the rehearsal dinner invitation. I did. Thank you. Wonderful. We're planning an intimate gathering. Just immediate family and close friends. About 40 people. The private dining room will be perfect. I'm sure it will. I also wanted to mention that Richard and I have been very impressed with how you've handled the recent city inspections. It's part of operating a commercial property. Still, many venue owners would have become defensive or difficult. You've been cooperative and professional. That means a lot to us. I'm glad. Richard wanted me to convey his appreciation. He values reliability, and you've proven yourself reliable. I aim to be. Good. Because between you and me, this wedding is more than just a family celebration. It's also a statement about the kind of people we are, the kind of standards we maintain. We can't afford any surprises. There won't be any. I'm counting on that, as is Richard. He's invested significant personal capital into this event. Not just money, reputation. If anything were to go wrong, it would reflect poorly on everyone involved, including you. The threat was barely veiled now. I understand completely, I said. I thought you might. You strike me as a man who understands how the world actually works. I try. Then we'll get along perfectly. I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner. She hung up. I made a note of the conversation and added it to my growing file on the Whitmores. Every interaction was revealing. Every phone call exposed another layer of their strategy. They were trying to lock me in, bind me with compliments and implied threats, make me dependent on their approval. They had no idea I was doing the same thing to them. Friday afternoon, Emily stopped by the hotel. She didn't call ahead, just appeared in the lobby and asked the front desk to find me. I met her in the lounge. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to see the space before the wedding, make sure everything looks right. We walked through the grand ballroom. It was empty except for a cleaning crew. The chandeliers caught the afternoon light. The windows overlooked the city. It's beautiful, Emily said. It's a good space. Catherine loves it. She told me she's been to dozens of weddings at different venues, and this is one of the nicest. That's kind of her. Emily turned to me. Are you nervous? About what? About the wedding, about hosting the Whitmores, about Richard. Why would I be nervous? Because he's intimidating and powerful, and he has a reputation for being very demanding. I've dealt with demanding clients before. Not like this. Richard doesn't just have high standards. He has expectations, and if you don't meet them, there are consequences. What kind of consequences? Emily looked uncomfortable. He can make things difficult. Business relationships, social connections. He knows people everywhere. If he decides you're a problem, he can make sure other people see you that way too. You're warning me. I'm asking you to be careful. James's family is important to my future. I can't have you antagonizing them. I haven't antagonized anyone. Not yet, but I know how you are. You don't like being pushed, and Richard pushes everyone. It's how he operates. He tests people to see if they'll break. I don't break. That's what I'm worried about. Because if you push back, it's not just you who gets hurt. It's me. It's my marriage. It's everything I've been building. I studied her carefully. What did Richard say to you? What? You didn't come here because you suddenly wanted to see the ballroom? Someone said something? What was it? Emily hesitated. He asked me about your background, where you went to school, what companies you'd worked for, whether you had any political connections. What did you tell him? That I didn't know, that we weren't close growing up, that you were private about your work. And he said that people who hide their background usually have something to hide. That discretion is either humility or deception, and he needed to know which one you were. What do you think I am? I think you're careful, and I think Richard doesn't trust careful people because he can't control them. You're right. Emily's expression tightened. So what are you going to do? Nothing. I'm going to host your wedding, provide excellent service, and let Richard draw whatever conclusions he wants. That's not good enough. He's going to keep pushing, keep testing, and eventually you're going to push back. And when you do, it's going to explode. Then maybe it should explode. David. Emily, you're asking me to perform for someone who's already decided I'm inadequate. There's no version of this where Richard approves of me, so I might as well be authentic. Authentic gets me divorced before I'm even married. Then maybe you're marrying the wrong family. She stood up. I came here hoping you'd be reasonable, that you'd understand what's at stake, but you're just going to do whatever you want, regardless of how it affects me. I'm going to do my job, which is run this hotel. If that's not enough for Richard, that's his problem, not mine. Emily walked toward the exit. At the door, she turned back. Kevin was right. You can't help yourself. You have to make everything about control. I'm not the one trying to control anyone. Yes, you are. You're just doing it quietly. She left. I stood alone in the empty ballroom, listening to the echo of her footsteps fade. Saturday, I drove to my lawyer's office. He had the force majeure analysis ready. The clause is standard: acts of God, government action, war, terrorism, labor strikes, utility failures, none of which you can engineer without committing fraud. What about regulatory changes? Only if they're unforeseeable. A new law passed after the contract was signed could qualify, but nothing that was predictable or within your control. What if the city changed occupancy limits? Based on what? Safety concerns, capacity reassessment, updated fire codes. My lawyer set down his pen. You're talking about convincing the city to reduce the Meridian's occupancy limit right before a 300-person wedding. Hypothetically. Hypothetically, that would require evidence of a safety hazard, which you don't have, because if you did have one, you'd be required to report it immediately, which means you're either manufacturing a hazard or ignoring a real one. Either way, you're creating liability. What if the hazard already exists and I'm just now discovering it? Then you'd have to prove you couldn't have reasonably discovered it earlier, which would be difficult since you own the building and employ engineers specifically to identify hazards. So I'm locked in. You're contractually obligated to provide a venue for the wedding, unless something genuinely unforeseeable happens, yes? I left his office and drove to the Meridian. It was Saturday afternoon. The building was busy, a corporate event in the conference center, a smaller wedding in the garden pavilion, normal weekend operations. I walked through each space, observing. The staff moved efficiently. The guests seemed satisfied. Everything functioned exactly as designed. And I realized the truth. I couldn't sabotage the wedding without destroying what I'd built. The Meridian's reputation was its value. One failed event, one disaster, one catastrophic breakdown would undermine years of careful brand management. Revenge against the Whitmores wasn't worth that cost, but understanding their vulnerabilities was. Sunday morning, I went to my office and opened the Whitmore file. I'd been collecting information for 3 weeks: business relationships, social connections, philanthropic commitments, financial interests. Richard's power was distributed across a network: board positions, advisory roles, strategic partnerships. He didn't own companies outright. He influenced them through relationships, which meant his power was conditional, based on perception, maintained through consistent performance, and vulnerable to reputation damage. I started mapping secondary connections. People who worked with Richard but weren't directly dependent on him. Associates who might be willing to reconsider their relationships if given reason. It was subtle work, not aggressive, just strategic erosion. Monday morning, Marcus knocked on my office door. We have a problem. What kind? The Whitmore wedding insurance certificate. They still haven't provided it. How long do we have? Contract requires 30 days' notice. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Did you contact Caroline? 3 times. She keeps saying it's being processed, but I haven't received anything. I considered this. Send a formal notice, certified letter, stating that per contract section 12, proof of insurance must be received within 72 hours or we reserve the right to cancel without penalty. Marcus looked shocked. You want to threaten to cancel? I want to enforce the contract they signed. That's going to create a massive problem. Richard will provide the insurance certificate because he understands contracts, and he'll recognize that we're not negotiating, we're requiring compliance. And if he doesn't, then we'll address that when it happens. Marcus left, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't blame him. He was caught between competing pressures, me demanding procedural compliance, the Whitmores demanding special treatment. But that was the point. Pressure reveals character. Tuesday afternoon, Catherine called. Her voice was different, harder. Mr. Brennan, I received a rather aggressive letter from your general manager. Regarding the insurance requirement? Regarding a technicality that could have been handled with a simple phone call. It's not a technicality, it's a contractual requirement, which we're in the process of fulfilling. Our insurance broker had some administrative delays. It's being resolved. I'm glad to hear it. Once we receive the certificate, we'll confirm the booking. Confirm? The booking is already confirmed. We have a signed contract. Which requires insurance. Section 12 is very clear. There was a long silence. Then, are you seriously suggesting you might cancel my son's wedding over a paperwork delay? I'm suggesting that contracts have terms, and terms must be met. This is absurd. Richard is going to hear about this. I imagine he will. You understand who you're dealing with, don't you? I understand completely. Good, because if you think you can leverage this wedding for some kind of personal advantage, you're making a serious mistake. I'm not leveraging anything. I'm running a business. Businesses that cross Richard Whitmore don't stay in business very long. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Richard has spent 40 years building relationships. He has friends in every industry, on every board, in every city department. If he decides you're a problem, you'll discover very quickly how small your world can become. I'll take that risk. Catherine's voice dropped. You're making an enemy you can't afford. Perhaps. Or perhaps you're assuming power you don't actually have. She hung up. I sat back and waited. 12 minutes later, Richard called. His voice was controlled but cold. Mr. Brennan, Richard Whitmore. I understand there's been a misunderstanding about our wedding contract. No misunderstanding, just a requirement that hasn't been met. The insurance requirement is being handled. There's a processing delay. It's not a substantive issue. Then providing the certificate shouldn't be difficult. It will be provided, but sending a cancellation threat was inappropriate and unprofessional. It wasn't a threat. It was a notification of contractual terms. Don't play semantic games with me. I've negotiated more contracts than you've read. I know what a threat looks like, and I know what appropriate business communication looks like. Your letter was neither. The letter stated facts. You're welcome to interpret those facts however you choose. Richard's tone shifted. Let me be very clear. My son's wedding will take place at your hotel on the scheduled date. The insurance certificate will be provided within 48 hours. And in exchange for your continued cooperation, I'll forget this conversation happened. And if I don't cooperate, then you'll discover that running a hotel requires more than just owning a building. It requires permits, inspections, vendor relationships, bank financing, all of which can become remarkably complicated when the right people decide you're not worth the hassle. Are you threatening to destroy my business? I'm explaining consequences. You're a small operator in a competitive market. You depend on relationships you don't even know exist. I could make 3 phone calls and your financing would evaporate. 5 calls and your permits would be under review. 10 calls and your vendors would find other priorities. That's quite a network. It's 40 years of building trust, which you're jeopardizing over a paperwork technicality. It's not a technicality, it's a liability requirement, which will be met. So I'm asking you, one businessman to another, to withdraw the cancellation threat and allow this wedding to proceed as planned. Or you'll regret it. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, the insurance certificate, 48 hours. Once I receive it, the booking is confirmed. That's what I thought. He hung up. I sat very still, processing the conversation. Richard had shown me his full hand. Threats, pressure, network leverage, all the tools he used to control people. But he'd also revealed something else. He was afraid, not of losing the wedding venue, that was replaceable, but of losing control of the narrative, of being told no by someone he couldn't immediately dominate. That fear was useful. Wednesday morning, the insurance certificate arrived by courier. It was comprehensive. $2 million in liability coverage. All requirements met. I called Marcus. Confirm the Whitmore booking. All conditions satisfied. Should I call Catherine? No, just update the file and continue normal operations. Thursday afternoon, Emily called. Richard told me what you did. What did I do? You threatened to cancel the wedding. I enforced a contract requirement. You humiliated him. He's not used to being told no. And you didn't just tell him no, you made him comply with your demand. He signed a contract. I held him to it. And now he hates you. He told Catherine you're arrogant and difficult, that you're going to be a problem for my marriage. Your marriage is between you and James. I have nothing to do with it. You have everything to do with it. You're my family, and Richard judges people by their associations. If my family is difficult, I'm difficult by extension. Then maybe Richard needs to adjust his judgment criteria. Emily's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. I'm existing. If that's threatening to Richard, that's his problem. It's my problem, because I have to live with the consequences. Then maybe you should reconsider who you're living with. She hung up. I sat in my office and looked out the window. The city moved below me, cars, pedestrians, the ordinary flow of people pursuing their own interests. And I realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The wedding was in 9 days, the rehearsal dinner in 8, and I'd turned myself into the villain of my own sister's story. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I'd refused to be controlled, which in the Whitmore worldview was the same thing.